The heart of Washington, D.C. pulsed with its usual intensity as the House Judiciary Committee meeting room filled with an atmosphere more tense than usual. Cameras were positioned, reporters clutched their notepads, and Representative Taylor Greene approached the podium with confident strides. That familiar smile spread across her face, as if the entire world was under her control. "Today will be another easy day," Greene murmured to herself while adjusting her microphone. As other committee members took their seats, Greene surveyed her surroundings. Everything was proceeding according to plan. Her prepared speech notes were in hand, questions from the media were predictable, and across from her sat young Representative Jasmine Crockett, quietly organizing her documents. For Greene, this was just another routine Wednesday afternoon meeting. In recent months, her name had been frequently mentioned in the media, her supporters backed her, and she was confident she would deliver the same performance today. When she stepped up to the microphone, she began speaking with that characteristic self-assurance. "Mr. Chairman, distinguished colleagues," Greene's voice echoed through the chamber. "The reason we're here today is clear. We're here to amplify the voice of the American people." As reporters' cameras focused on Greene, she let out a small chuckle. "Some may not understand the work we do, but we are the true representatives of the people." Meanwhile, Jasmine Crockett sat quietly at her desk, listening to Greene's speech. A thick folder lay before her, but she hadn't opened it yet. She was simply listening, observing, and noting Greene's every word. As Greene continued her speech, she grew increasingly comfortable. "Thanks to the decisions we made last month," she began, completing her sentence while several Republican members nodded in approval. This boosted Greene's morale even further. "Now I can take your questions," Greene said with an almost challenging tone. Her eyes scanned the room, as if confident that no one could harm her. The first question came from a routine security expert. "Representative Greene, what are your thoughts on the decisions made during last week's security briefing?" Greene laughed. She actually laughed. "Oh, that's an easy question. Of course we made the right decisions. America's security is paramount." The second question came from a journalist. "What about the recent reports that have surfaced?" "Which reports?" Greene shrugged. "We shouldn't believe everything that appears in the media. The facts are clear." During this time, Jasmine Crockett remained silent. She hadn't opened her folder, hadn't spoken. She was simply watching Greene, like a hunter stalking its prey. Greene answered the third question with similar ease. She was now completely relaxed, even beginning to enjoy herself. "Any other questions?" she asked, her voice carrying obvious confidence. The meeting room seemed to be under Greene's control. She had been doing this for years, handling these types of questions and using the media to deliver her own message. Today seemed no different, or so she thought. "Representative Greene," Committee Chairman Robert Mitchell interjected. "I believe Jasmine Crockett also has a question for you." Greene turned and looked at Crockett. The young woman was still sitting quietly, but now she was leaning over her folder. "Of course," Greene said, smiling. "I'm listening." Crockett slowly stood up. She held nothing in her hands, only that thick folder remained on her desk. "Representative Greene, first, thank you for being here today." This polite beginning made Greene even more comfortable. "You're welcome, Representative Crockett." "Before I proceed with my questions," Crockett continued, "I'd like to show you something." At this point, she opened her folder and extracted a series of documents. Greene's smile diminished slightly, but she was still comfortable. "Of course, what would you like to show me?" "These documents relate to decisions made during last month's security briefing." Crockett held up the first page. "Your signature is here." "Yes, of course it is." "What's wrong with that?" Crockett pulled out the second document. "This is another decision made on the same day, during the same briefing." "This is also your signature, isn't it?" Greene answered without looking at the documents. "Probably yes. I signed many documents that day." At this point, the atmosphere in the room began to shift. Journalists were listening more carefully. Cameras were focusing on both Greene and Crockett. "What about this third document?" Crockett held up the third page. "This is also your signature, correct?" Greene was beginning to feel slightly uncomfortable, but still thought she was in control. "Representative Crockett, where are you going with this?" "These are routine procedures." "Routine?" Crockett's voice was calm but determined. "Have you noticed any contradictions between these three documents?" "What contradictions?" Greene's voice contained a hint of unease for the first time. Crockett picked up the fourth document from the table. When you carefully examine these documents, you'll see that you made 3 contradictory decisions on the same issue. Greene leaned forward to see the papers. What do you mean? In the first document, you vote to increase the security budget. In the second document, you vote to decrease the same budget. In the third document, you vote to eliminate the budget entirely. A murmur began in the room. Journalists were whispering to each other. Cameras were moving in for closer shots. Greene looked at the documents more carefully. This must be an error. An error? Crockett pulled out the 5th document. Is this document also an error? Here you state that you never attended this security briefing at all. Greene's face began to redden. What do you mean? What I mean is this. Either you attended this briefing or you didn't, but you've recorded both situations as true in the official records. At this point, Greene had completely shifted to a defensive position. She was no longer laughing. Where are these documents coming from? From the Congressional Archives. All officially approved documents with your signature. The tension in the room was steadily increasing. Committee Chairman Robert Mitchell tried to intervene. Representative Crockett, how can we verify the authenticity of these documents? Crockett pulled out the 6th document. This document is also from the same archive, Mr. Chairman. Digital copies of all these documents are also available. Greene was now sweating. This must be a conspiracy. A conspiracy? Crockett's voice remained calm. Is your own signature a conspiracy? Greene was now in complete panic mode. The meeting she had been so confident about at the beginning was starting to spiral out of control. I don't know where these documents came from. Crockett pulled out the 7th document. This document was also signed by you. Here you declare that you didn't attend any security meetings last month. That's impossible. But this is your signature. Greene slammed the table. Enough! I question the source of these documents. Crockett placed the 8th document on the table. The source is Congress's own archive system, Representative Greene. You know you cannot challenge this system. The journalists in the room were now in a frenzy. Flashes were going off, recording devices were being extended toward Greene. This isn't fair! Greene's voice was beginning to crack. Crockett pulled out the 9th document. I'm glad you brought up fairness. This document contains information about your salary from last month. What does my salary have to do with this? It shows that in addition to attendance fees for the security briefings you're currently being questioned about, you also received your regular salary. Greene's face was now completely pale. This is normal procedure. Normal procedure is to receive payment for meetings you attend. But if you're also receiving payment for meetings you didn't attend, stop. Greene jumped to her feet. This is an accusation. Crockett calmly placed the 10th document on the table. This isn't an accusation, Representative Greene. These are documents. Greene was now in complete panic, wanting to leave the meeting room. I want to leave this meeting. The committee chairman intervened. Representative Greene, the meeting is still in session. But this isn't a fair questioning. Crockett pulled out the 11th document. Representative Greene, you brought up the subject of fairness. This document contains your written views on the justice system. What views? Here you say, justice in America should be equal for everyone. Greene waited silently. In that case, Crockett continued, the same justice system should apply to you as well, shouldn't it? Greene couldn't answer. Crockett placed the 12th document on the table. In this document you also say, no one is above the law. Greene's hands began to tremble. If no one is above the law, Crockett continued quietly, you cannot avoid providing an explanation regarding these documents. Greene sat down at the table, putting her head in her hands. The silence in the room was now almost unbearable. Cameras were recording every moment. Journalists were holding their breath. Crockett picked up the last document, the 13th, from the table. And finally this document. Greene didn't lift her head. This document contains the transcript of the interview you gave on local television last week. Greene finally raised her head. Her eyes were teary. In this interview you say, I am always an honest politician. I hide nothing. Greene's lips were trembling. If you hide nothing, Crockett's voice was at its calmest, how will you explain the contradictions in these 13 documents? Greene remained silent for a long time. Everyone in the room was waiting for her answer. Finally, she spoke with a trembling voice. Yes? Crockett waited. I don't remember. These 3 words would mark the end of Greene's political career. The woman who had been so confident, so cheerful at the beginning, now sat collapsed at her desk. Crockett gathered her documents. "Thank you, Representative Greene. I have no further questions." Greene tried to stand up, but her legs wouldn't support her. Security guards had to help her. The journalists in the room went wild. These images would be shared throughout America. As Greene was escorted from the meeting room, her initial smile had given way to real tears. Jasmine Crockett calmly put her documents back in the folder, as if nothing had happened. From that day forward, Taylor Greene's political career was never the same. In the media, she began to be referred to as Laughter to Tears Greene. Jasmine Crockett continued her work with the same composure. That day, she had simply used the documents in her possession, revealing the truth. America would never forget this meeting. And Taylor Greene would never forget how her laughter that day turned to tears. Greene was filmed crying in her car, while Crockett was seen walking home. 2 different people, 2 different fates.